Amazon sucks right now. Uber sucks right now. Netflix sucks. Facebook sucks. Instagram sucks. Every big tech company is changing in front of our very eyes. And I know I usually try and see the bright side of tech, but for this video, I just want to be very brutally honest. I think most of these services we use are worse than you think. And I want people to do something about it. The first thing to understand is basically every big tech company follows the exact same pattern, something that a guy called Cory Doctorow summarized really well with the term enginification. See, when any of these companies first starts, their only chance of succeeding is to go above and beyond for their users by solving a key problem. Let's take Uber, for example. Uber came in 2009, and I remember first using it around that time and thinking, this is the end for traditional taxis. This is far more convenient. The taxis find me instead of the other way around. The drivers are friendlier, the cars are cleaner, and it did all of that while being so much cheaper. I mean, Uber at the start was 50%, sometimes 30% of the price of a traditional taxi. And so it's not surprising just how quickly people flooded onto Uber. I remember that within just about a year of it becoming operational, it went all the way from party trick to an essential app that everyone should have. But then things changed. As soon as Uber felt like they had the user side of the market cornered, completely locked into the app, they switched focus to the other side, the drivers. Because the users aren't going anywhere at this point. And so if Uber can manage to control them and also the drivers, Uber owns the market. It means the users will have to stay where the drivers are and the drivers will have to stay where the users are. So they sweetened the deal for them. Uber started handing out sign-on bonuses for new joiners. They started giving cash back on fuel and discounts on car maintenance. They paid their drivers 80% of what the app made. And the best part of it was surge pricing. Anytime there was a pickup in demand, drivers could well earn 2 times, 3 times, sometimes more. I remember coming out of a music festival once thinking, I don't need to pre-book my car, Uber will sort me out. Only to realize that because I was coming out with crowds of other people, my only way to guarantee that I got an Uber was to outpay all of them with 5 times surge pricing. I paid £100 for a 15-minute cab ride. But there is a third stage to this master plan. Because what does Uber do when they have the users, when they know they're by far the most convenient way to hail a cab, and they have the suppliers, the ex-taxi drivers, the restaurant takeaway drivers, the package delivery drivers? Well, that is when true enginification occurs. They gave users a surplus at the start to make their app essential, then shifted to giving suppliers that surplus to get them all on it, to build monopoly power and make it much harder to get a car outside of Uber. But this is the point where Uber, and every other big tech company in this position, will take all of that surplus for themselves. Because A, well, they can, but also B, because by the time a company reaches this stage, more than likely they are a public company, which means that the decisions aren't being made by one potentially passionate founder, but instead just many, many shareholders. And because shareholders aren't usually as invested in the long-term health of the business, they just want the business to earn quick money so that they can cash out, their objectives often boil down to, how do we make the users pay up until the absolute limit of what they're willing to, but just not past it? And then how do we pay the suppliers the absolute least that they're willing to take, but just not less than it? So this is what that enginification looks like in practice. And it all starts with tiering, splitting the base service up into multiple tiers, all at different price points. And on the face of it, that sounds great. Like on Uber, for example, it means that you can now get priority if you want faster, comfort, which is newer cars with more legroom, exec, which is high-end cars with top-rated drivers, and then Lux, which is the very, very top end. Think about it. Now that they offer all of these options, what happens when you're just getting a normal Uber now? You get extremely long wait times because no driver who can charge exec prices is going to take a ride for normal prices. You get all the drivers who don't qualify for high-rated service and all the cars that don't count as new enough for comfort. And trust me when I say the requirements for comfort are not very high. This idea of splitting things up to offer more premium services is not inherently bad. It's just the way these companies achieve this is much less about making the experience better for the people who are paying more, but much more about just making it worse for the people who aren't. Uber isn't changing the pool of cars on the road to accommodate these tiers. They're the same cars, the same people with the same training, but it's just now they're segregated in a way that each user pays the maximum they're willing to pay and the service provided is the bare minimum for that price. Or take Netflix. When Netflix first started, it felt revolutionary. I can pay £5.99 a month, which is cheaper than an average movie ticket nowadays, and get all of this
ad-free?
But then Netflix introduced 4K quality, which instead of just being added to the base service, became part of a separate tier, now being charged at £17.99 a month. Then they actually went as far as to introduce adverts back into your movies, after the whole deal about this being the way to watch movies without adverts. And unless you upgrade to the middle subscription tier, which is £10.99, you're going to get those adverts. Netflix isn't even the worst offender, to be honest. At least their ad-supported tier is cheaper than the normal tier, whereas Now TV and Amazon Prime, they just stuck ads into the normal tier. The point is, tiering is not being used to benefit the user. It's being used to charge you more if you're willing to pay more, and then give you the minimum acceptable experience if you're not. And that brings me on to subscriptions in general. Subscriptions on their own, they can be fine. They can be a way to make services more accessible instead of having to front load a big upfront cost. They can be a way to force companies to continue to provide value and updates over a period of time. But the way that these big tech companies are using subscriptions now has meant that we're often not paying those monthly subscriptions instead of the bigger upfront costs. We're paying them both, and you're actually getting a worse service now whilst paying for a subscription than you were originally for free. Like Amazon, for example. The entire purpose of Amazon Prime was unlimited one-day deliveries. So why is it that now we're also having to often pay to get the fastest delivery, and for many products, actually having to hit a minimum spend just to get that perk, which is how every online store has ever worked since the very beginning, but without needing to pay a monthly fee. Or for Uber, I regularly used to take Ubers to go see Drisha early on when we were dating. She was about 120 miles away, and it used to cost about £120. But over the last few years, I have seen that price not just creep, but soar up to 150, 200, 250, and now £300. Uber has gone from half the price of a normal taxi to, in a lot of cases, actually more expensive than just calling up your local cab company and pre-booking a car. And remember, that's for the lowest tier, which, because this tiering exists, means that you are specifically selecting a car that's at least 8 years old, with the driver who's completed less than 100 trips, or someone who just hasn't been able to keep a good rating. And you remember that surge pricing we talked about earlier? That still exists, but now you just don't see it. Instead of Uber telling you that you're about to pay 3 times what you should be paying, it just does it, so that you start losing your reference point of what the journey even should cost. And that is where the subscription service comes in to save the day. Uber One. I'm paying for it every single month because it gives you a 5% discount on your rides and free delivery on your Uber Eats food orders. I'll get to that one very soon because that is actually an even bigger problem in itself. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if Uber is just inventing the price, if Uber is just deciding how much it can charge you for this particular journey, as opposed to giving you an actual breakdown of why it costs what it costs, then a 5% discount on a made-up price, it doesn't actually mean anything. And you're still paying far, far more than you used to just a few years ago for the same rides, and now you have a monthly expense as well that further ties you into using Uber and Uber only for all your driving and delivery needs. And if you're enjoying this rather painful video, then a sub to the channel would be ironic, because we're asking you for a subscription. But this one's free, and we do try very hard, so... Anyway, if you're wondering why that Uber now costs £300, well, it's not because the drivers have started earning more. The biggest way that companies like Uber and Amazon, once they become the default option, start to take all of that surplus away is simply by extracting the largest cut that they possibly can from every transaction. Let's call this the platform fees. Let me show you Uber Eats for a minute. So I fancy some McDonald's chicken nuggets. Right, okay. Wow, so the first thing you'll notice is pricing. Almost every item of food on Uber Eats is between 10 and, no joke, 100% more expensive than it actually is in person. Like 20 chicken nuggets, £6.99. That seems like an awful lot. But okay, add to basket. So then when we go into our basket, oh, look at that. Add £8.01 to save with Uber One. So again, notice, just like with Amazon Prime, Uber is trying to frame this as if I'm getting some sort of perk, when actually free delivery is something that I'm actively paying a monthly subscription just to get, and the app is denying that benefit until I hit a minimum spend, which, by the way, almost always means wastage. I mean, it's encouraging people to order more than they want to order. Besides, what can I order that's going to exactly hit £8.01? I'm gonna have to go over. But anyway, let's go to the next page. Oh, people also ordered to really try and tempt me into getting those group savings, but no, resist. Next. Oh my goodness, would you look at that? Priority delivery, £2.49. And just to be very clear, priority delivery isn't some sort of hyper-accelerated, personalized service that would very much be worth that price. All it means is your driver doesn't take stops on the way to you. You know, exactly how every takeaway service ever used to work. And this is a great example of tiering. When Uber Eats first started, it was just an assumed thing that of course your driver is going to come straight to you to deliver your order. Up until normal restaurant takeaway service have been eliminated, and now, well, you want fast, you pay for fast. So okay, fine, we're going to go priority. I don't want my food to be cold when it gets to me. And then you scroll down and, oh, priority delivery is actually being charged at £4.78. And that's because it's actually on top of an already existing base delivery fee. And then there's just fee. So if I click that, it says part of that is the small order fee for orders less than £10, because orders less than £10 should have an extra charge because they're going to cost more to be delivered. What? Because the priority delivery fee is my delivery fee, so why is there a separate delivery fee for the fact that my order is small? Do you see what I'm saying? And then there's the service fee. And this is what Uber wants you to think of as their cut. But the truth is, Uber is taking a slice out of every single part of this pie. Actually, I can show you. So McDonald's chicken nuggets price. Okay, so it's £4.49 on the McDonald's app, which basically means that just for delivery, Uber is taking 70% of the value of the order. What a joke. And this is actually what I find the most insulting part of it. It's the fact that we're paying a monthly subscription for Uber One, right? I've just paid extra for priority delivery, which says between 10 and 20 minutes. But when you click order, Uber will only get involved and even think about refunding you anything if the order actually takes 45 minutes or longer. Okay, so just to be very clear, your special guarantee just for me, because I'm one of your highest paying customers, is that my order will not take 2.5 times longer than the upper limit of what you just guaranteed it might. Oh, well, thank you very much, Uber One. It is mortifying how much they're exploiting the consumer here. I mean, imagine what happens if companies like this get in charge of your medical and emergency services. Amazon is just as bad. The other day, Drisha was buying a batch of mini little hampers for some gifts she was putting together. £12.99 is the absolute cheapest you could find them on Amazon. And just before we checked out, we thought, let's just do one little check elsewhere. And within a minute of browsing outside of Amazon, we found them for £4. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, I've paid my delivery fee. That's what I'm paying the subscription cost for. There's no way that this thing is going to be cheaper in another store that I'm not paying a monthly fee to have free delivery from. That's what they want you to think. But the truth is, Amazon is charging for Prime, Amazon is charging extra for delivery in some cases. Amazon is charging sellers to sell on the platform, and then they're charging you extra to buy on the platform. And you can even notice this effect with free platforms. Social media, for example, even though companies like Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube, even though they're not directly charging you, will still absolutely find ways to maximize their earnings from you once they know that you're in. Once Facebook had got everyone to sign up for the first time by being this open haven where you come to keep connected with every single person you know and love, they became very aware that no individual person could just leave. That would be social suicide. So Facebook could crank that money-making lever as much as they wanted to. They could fill it with ads. They could charge companies as much as they wanted to target those ads at you. They can curate your feed, taking the people you follow not as commands of what you want to see, but just suggestions. Suggestions that are quite quickly discarded as soon as Facebook realizes what they can show you to make more money out of you. Now, where this all gets really deceptive is the dark patterns. Basically tricks that companies employ to make you do things that you didn't mean to do. Chicken nuggets are here. I'm actually fasting, so I can't eat them. So there you go, enjoy them. They were £13.75. Last year, actually, I signed up to using an app called Piccolo. It's just a social or drinking game where it serves you prompts on your phone and then you get those people to do those things. Like, hey Brian, from now on, you have to do the worm every single time you say something. Sorry, Brian. The game's got a 3-day free trial. Oh, great. But then it's £4.49 per week. £4.49 per week for a game that's very clearly been designed to be played once a month at most. And I would have happily bought it for £4.49 or even £10 if that's what they charged it as a one-off fee. You know, how it used to be before the subscription thing took over. But anyway, I went for the free trial. I played the game with my friends. We were drinking, so I didn't specifically remember to cancel it when I woke up the next day. And it took half a year when my accountant asked, what is this £4.49 every week going to Apple? When he mentioned it, I realized I had seen it a couple of times coming up on my accounts, but because it was just a payment to Apple, I assumed, oh, it must be iCloud or something. Negligent on my end? Yes, absolutely, but I'm human. I forgot once, and my penalty for that, for playing one phone game for 2 hours one night, about £110. There are plenty of subscription services I have that I think are fair, but this is a very clear example of one that is predatory. One whose entire business model clearly revolves around charging an unfair price and hoping that people will forget. Another dark pattern that I see so much of nowadays is the manipulation of the default option. Like, I shop a lot on Amazon, right? And the reason for that is that even though I know they're often no longer the cheapest, is that they're basically the only company whose delivery infrastructure I can mostly rely on. The only company for who, when they say next day, it really does mean that it will come next day. This is the key problem that Amazon first solved for its users. It's what got us also invested in the platform and what got me and millions of others to start paying monthly subscriptions to Prime. But now Amazon, as well as oftentimes introducing a minimum order quantity to get that free delivery, also often pre-selects the slower delivery option with, and I've looked into this, no way to stop it doing that. So let me just get this straight. You're charging me a monthly subscription for unlimited next day delivery, but then assuming that unless I specify otherwise, I'd rather get the slower delivery that I didn't have to pay for. And this is absolutely an example of a dark pattern, because we've had at least 3 or 4 occasions where we're about to film a video, and then we realize some of the stuff that we'd ordered for that video hasn't actually arrived. We go back and we realize it's because when checking out in a hurry, we didn't realize that Amazon didn't select the fastest option that was advertised to us as the delivery window on the product page. Honestly, at this point, there is an intricate web of dark patterns these companies are using, and you'll absolutely have experienced some of them. Like deliberately confusing website design intended to fool or confuse the customer into not canceling their subscription. For example, it's quite common to have multiple pages you have to go through to cancel, but then what some companies have started doing is flipping the continue and the back buttons between each page. So as you're trying to mash your mouse as quickly as possible to unsubscribe, you're actually being taken around and around the company's pages in a loop so that you end up reading their entire spiel. Aggressively offering you discounts, and only offering those discounts right before you decide you want to cancel, which always makes you realize how much you were overpaying in the first place. Encouraging you to pause your subscription so that it automatically resumes after a set period of time, as opposed to you being a functioning adult who can just cancel and then rejoin later if you decide you want to. And trying every single thing they can to guilt you with the fear of missing out, with things like continue your deactivation only if you are a boring person who never likes to have fun again. There was a big study by Email Tool Tester who found that the average consumer encounters over 6 dark patterns when trying to cancel any subscription service nowadays. I mean, imagine talking to a person and they try to mislead you 6 times in the span of a few minutes. That's so bad that it's hard to wrap your head around. I actually experienced one of the worst examples of this just last week when I found myself with a little bit of spare time and I thought, I'd love to get just 1 month's worth of PlayStation Online play. That should be simple, right? So I opened up the purchase page for online and no, I don't want premium. No, I don't want extra. I just want to play online. But wait, there's no option to just buy 1 month. There used to be. Does it just assume now that when I subscribe, I want to stay subscribed forever? But okay, fine. So I'll just buy the essential package and then I'll cancel straight away so that I don't get charged in any subsequent months. So I do that. But then where's the cancel button? You'd think you'd be able to go to the same place you bought it from to cancel, but no. The only thing you can do on that page is to upgrade. The cancel is actually hidden in your console's settings. But where in the settings? I spent so long looking, I gave up, and I actually had to Google to find that you have to go into users and accounts, then you go into account, then payment and subscriptions, then click PlayStation Plus. Okay, so then surely you just click cancel and you're good, right? Oh no, because then it asks you if you'd rather change your plan after I've specifically chosen to click the cancel button instead of the change button. Okay, so click cancel. Are you sure you're about to lose these benefits and more? Then when you confirm, yet another window asking you for your reasons before it will actually let you cut. But it's not even just about what any one company does in isolation. It's just the fact that every big tech company is doing a subscription is in itself part of the problem. Because in most cases, the more subscription services there are, the worse each one gets, and the more that you end up having to pay just to be able to still do the things you want to do. See, you have a limited amount of time, right? Let's say you have enough spare time to watch 2 movies a week. In an era where subscribing to Netflix at its original £5.99 price lets you watch all the big blockbuster movies people were talking about, that's a cracking deal. You're basically paying 75p per movie. But then Disney Plus comes along and takes Disney-owned shows onto their own platform. Apple TV Plus comes along, Amazon Prime Video, Paramount Plus, Peacock, and every single one takes the rights for 1 or 2 of the big exclusive must-watch shows, and before you know it, you're paying like 6 different subscription services. Combine that with the tiering, which means that if you want the perks and the ad-free experience that you initially signed up for, along with that high quality, you'll be paying mostly between £10 and £20 per month to each one. Remember, your time hasn't increased. The amount of content you consume hasn't changed. You're just paying movie rent to more different companies and using each service much less, amounting to £11 per movie you watch now, which is about what you would have paid for a DVD in the first place. It feels like we've looped all the way around and now we're back in the same place we were, except now you don't own anything. And services like Netflix are constantly culling their libraries just to keep their costs down. I was counting up the number of my own paid subscriptions I had a few days ago while planning out this video, and it's only when I totted it all up that I realized just how ridiculous it's become. Like, just for work, I subscribe to Epidemic Sound, Slack, Trello, the entire Adobe Creative Suite, Frame.io, Surfshark, Twitter Blue, Google Drive, Uber One, a whole load of different plugins. And then personally, Netflix, Spotify, Vodafone, Tidal, Apple TV Plus, Apple iCloud, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, Deliveroo Plus, PlayStation Plus, Xbox Live, Nintendo Switch Online. Oh my god. So the total I spend on subscriptions in a month is $1,212 per month. Oh my god. Now, the truth is, subscriptions and the dark patterns that often come with them, they're not going anywhere. It's not surprising that every single company wants them. They give predictable, regular revenue, which is basically the holy grail for businesses. I mean, it's a lot more encouraging to say to investors, we have 1,000 users and you can expect 950 of them to pay again next month, than to say, 1,000 people bought our product, we'll try and get more next time. It's way easier to get people in with a cheap subscription and then upsell them later on with add-ons and more expensive tiers, as opposed to having to go all in with the big upfront hard sell on a big purchase. And also, subscriptions create lock-in. So the people who are subscribed, they're not just paying you for the subscription, but they're also likely to keep paying you more while trying to make the most out of that subscription. And then finally, lots and lots of money. I mean, here's what a company's revenue looks like if they sell 100 products each month for £10, and here's what that same company's revenue looks like if they sell 100 subscriptions for £2 a month. It overtakes the individual purchases very quickly, and it just keeps accelerating. So, what do we do about it? Well, just me to you, what I would do is, when you sign up to a subscription that you know you only want to use for a month, just cancel it straight away. You'll get that first month and you can make sure it's nothing past that. If you're stuck subscribing to every single one of the TV services because you don't want to miss out and you do want to watch them all, you could just try rotating. Subscribing to one at a time, binging the thing that you most want to watch on that one for 1 month, and then moving on to the next. But then part of it also has to be policy. We should be pushing for governments to enforce smoother switching between platforms, like still being able to contact your Facebook friends without having to be an active Facebook user, and focusing on making platforms continue to deliver on their initial promises, beyond that initial honeymoon phase. So a social media platform, for example, should first show you what you signed up to see, as opposed to what will drive the most retention. Amazon should first show you the product it genuinely thinks is best matched to your search, as opposed to who's paid the most to advertise. And Google Search should first show you the reviews that it thinks best answer your questions, as opposed to just assuming that Google's own reviews should always be on top. And then also just keeping the consumer in mind when it comes to companies fragmenting. A lot of attention is given to when companies get too big, and rightly so, that's a big issue, but it's also bad for the consumer, especially in this subscription era when they get split up in ways that make each one a worse proposition in their own right. Now, one of the few subscriptions that I have that I genuinely think flies in the face of most of this is Surfshark VPN, for a few reasons. It actually fixes the mess created by some other subscription services like Netflix, who don't buy the licenses to all their shows in all the countries, so every country has a different library, which this lets you access by just flicking your location. It doesn't have any of those weird catches like this subscription only works for people so long as they stay in the same household. No, this subscription works for you and every single person you know. They didn't price themselves at $20 or $15 or $10. It's less than $3 a month when you use the code BOSS, with 3 months for free, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And most importantly, instead of intensifying themselves, Surfshark has actually gotten better. I've been using it for years now, and the app has got cleaner, there are no ads baked in, there's been no price creep, and the number of features included for this one price, it keeps going up, not down. Big thanks to Cory Doctorow, by the way. I've been reading a lot of his stuff while planning out this video, and I'll pop his main articles below if you want to have a read. Catch you in the next one.